Hey, I'm Kirk Woolford. I'm from University of Surrey. I have made quite a few virtual VR installations and other types of performances. And I have been talking with a number of our colleagues, particularly Michael Price, who is a film composer. He does music for Sherlock and BBC. He does Unforgotten. He's worked on these little things called Children of Men, Lord of the Rings, a few other films. But Michael has studied at the University of Surrey and before going out into the film industry. But he has just finished a whole album of site-specific performances in different National Trust locations. And he got very, very frustrated with the experience of being in these different locations, recording a piece for it, and then having to dub everything down to stereo in order to distribute it. So he started working on different forms of ambisonic spatialized audio recordings, and ended up working with BAFTA and others to try to take an ambisonic recording forward. But we were talking about how we could develop some of the research that Michael was doing with some of the work that we're doing about the same time that this whole call came out. So we thought this is a wonderful opportunity to actually work together on a project for a change. So this image here, oops, hey. So our piece is looking at a number of questions, basically saying how can we use immersive media in order to document a live performance? How can we recreate a performance in a way to allow audience members to experience the space itself? But also, how do we allow people to explore? How do we allow people to move around in a space? A lot of VR right now is actually just 360 video, which means that you're locked in a particular position. You can rotate around, but you can't actually move. But we know through other work that in order to actually feel present in a place, you have to be able to explore it, you have to be able to move through it. So we devised a couple of experiments. The last scene was a 360 recording we did of a live piece in St. Giles Cripplegate outside the Barbican. We have a 360 recording of it downstairs. We did a 24-channel audio mix of that, which has all been mixed down to one ambisonic channel. And we wanted to see, using the university's resources, using the Institute of Sound Recordings resources, how far could we push this? What is the best that we can do with current distribution channels and methods? So we've mixed everything down. We've spent a lot of time looking at different codecs and different ways of encoding this. But then the next step was to say, how can we make something which is reactive? And how can we explore a space and move through a space? So we also took the musicians into our green screen studio, shot musicians separately. But we also went into the location, to the venue itself, and did a LiDAR scan of the venue. So that's the image on the right is LiDAR of St. Giles Cripplegate. But when we did this recording, we also used a number of sound field recordings. So we did acoustic response recordings of the space. So we've actually got the whole acoustics of the location, as well as all the physical measurements of the space. We have a volumetric capture studio, which is developed by our engineering department over in Surrey. So we've taken, the original plan was to take all the musicians and do volumetric captures of all of them. But we very quickly discovered the limitations of volumetric capture. So we have done a volumetric capture of the singer themselves, and then we've got stereo captures of all the musicians. And we've done a lot of experimenting with the existing tools for working with immersive sound in VR, predominantly in Unity 3D. Oh, sorry. But one thing which doesn't seem to be explored very much is we've got a lot of people working on volumetric video, but there's very little research into volumetric audio. So the image on the right is SPAT, which is Earcom's spatial audio spatializer system. So we have been doing work with Earcom and how to take these multiple recordings and how to be able to create a whole recording of the entire space, so you can move any place within the space and hear the performance from different locations, not just where the piece was recorded. Some of the challenges we've run into is that a lot of the middleware which is out there right now colors the recordings, so it doesn't actually sound very true to the original recording itself. When we start working with a lot of these volumetric systems, we're talking about terabytes of data in some cases, but hundreds of gigabytes of data. And how do you move that around? How do you get that in and out of the computer? How do you play it back? One of the other issues is just how do we distribute this? So now we've created a number of these experiences. We have to write custom software just to be able to play it back, which drastically limits the audience for the work. So downstairs we've got another video. This is a volumetric render of the musician herself, of the singer herself as she walks through the cathedral. She lights up the cathedral around her. So this has all been developed into an interactive piece. We are still working on the synchronizing the sound of the imagery because we've been working very closely with a number of people from Abbey Road Studios. We have started working, set up a spatial audio forum at Abbey Road, which we would like to take this further and do a public presentation at Abbey Road. We have been planning a new piece, which I can go into more detail about, but we're using this piece as the test bed. So we figured out how we can do this, and now we want to go out and do it properly. And we are looking at optimizing the volumetric audio system that we've got. Right now we've got it running at about 15 frames per second, but that's not enough to be able to use with VR. And then we will continue developing this piece. As it stands right now, we are in an interesting situation where we've been lucky enough to work with a very, very talented, very highly respected composer. But this composer, because of his experience, doesn't want anything to be released which isn't perfect. So he has asked specifically that we not circulate this at this point because he doesn't think it fits his standards. Okay?
That's right. Yes.